In this video, I'm going to share with you how to facilitate a mastermind group effectively so that people want to come back again and again. So a mastermind group is a gathering of like-minded individuals with the purpose of everybody helping each other grow and prosper and share best practices and basically become better versions of themselves in whatever field the mastermind is focused on. So for example, I have a mastermind group that I started 6 years ago. And in that group, people have become very bonded with each other. Some of them have been there even as long as 6 years, and they help each other. And one of the reasons that this mastermind group works so well is because of how I designed it and how I facilitate it. So I'm going to share with you some of the strategies and secrets that I've learned along the way. First, I'm going to share with you a little bit about some statistics and what I've learned from my own mastermind group. Next, I'm going to share with you some of the typical problems that mastermind groups run into that prevent them from lasting or growing. I'm going to share with you solutions to those problems, as well as how to identify the right people to bring together into your mastermind group. I'm going to talk about the formats that you can use for a mastermind. And finally, some important rules of engagement that'll set the container and make your mastermind more effective and more fun and enjoyable for you and for your clients. I've run my own mastermind group for 6 years now, and along the way, I've made a lot of mistakes and learned a few things. When I started my mastermind group, first off, I wasn't that picky about who I brought in. In fact, my number one criteria for who could join was, do they want to join? And can they afford to pay for it? Now, over the years, I've gotten much more stringent about who I allow in. And the reason for that is because you have to remember, with a mastermind format, what you're doing is you're tapping into the collective magic. So different from, like, let's say a group coaching program. In a group coaching program, you are often the source of the magic for your clients. In a mastermind, they're the source of magic for each other. So if you bring in one person who's not a right fit, or one person who doesn't really fit with the culture, or really doesn't get it, or who's rude, or who's negative, that's going to impact your mastermind group, and you could lose people just because of that one person. My mastermind group, when I started, we had a retention rate of about 20 to 25%. That's not good. That means that 20 to 25% of the people who came into the first year stayed into the second year. Today, this year, from 2020, we had a retention rate of over 80%. And one of the biggest shifts that I made was that I raised the standards about who could come into the group. And that has been one of the best decisions that I've ever made. So in addition to the hundreds of mastermind sessions that I've led with my own people, I've also led mastermind sessions for other organizations. And I've had the privilege and the pleasure of doing these masterminds sometimes in communities that don't like masterminds at all. For example, a few years ago, I was asked to co-chair the brand lab for the National Speakers Association. And I had the idea, well, let's do it as a mastermind format. And a lot of the people in the organization really resisted that and said, don't do it. It's never going to work. But we structured it in such a way that it was very effective. And I'm going to share with you one of the things that we did that you can do to make sure that your mastermind groups work out really, really well. So before I get into how to facilitate, how to structure a mastermind session effectively, I want to share with you some of the problems that you can run into that we want to address. So the first problem that happens all the time is that you have people that are not a right fit for the event. They don't have the right background, or they don't have the right skill set. They just don't fit with the culture. Another issue that you can find is people who dominate the conversation. You know, it's a group, a mastermind ideally is a group of people all participating, all sharing best practices, all sharing ideas. But every once in a while you get one person who thinks that they have all the answers and they take up all the airtime. Another problem you can find is people receiving feedback in a mastermind who shut down what somebody else is saying. So let's say somebody gives them feedback and they immediately say, oh, that's never going to work for me. I already tried that. That's a terrible idea. And that really shuts down the dialogue in a mastermind. So those are some of the problems you can run into, although there are many more. But what I'm going to share with you addresses those problems and a lot of others as well. So the first thing is obviously, and I think I've mentioned this before, especially maybe in other videos as well, because I have many videos about masterminds. The first solution is, who do you bring together? having high standards and stringent boundaries around who gets to be in your mastermind. You can do any sort of boundary. Like, for example, you can decide, hey, you have to have been in business for 3 years if you have a mastermind for entrepreneurs. Or you can say, hey, you have to own this type of business. You have to be in this industry. But essentially, upfront, establishing what are the standards, what criteria do your people need to meet, and then having those criteria be the standard for anybody that comes in. Another thing to think about is, what is the format of your mastermind? How much time are people going to get? Are you going to do a half day or a full day or a 3-day, right? One of the things that we do is we have a mastermind in our community once every month. So every month there's one call where we do breakouts into masterminds. But then on top of that, once every quarter, we have a full day mastermind that people get to come in on, and they get a much longer session. So in our once a month sessions, it's 90 minutes. So each person we split into groups of 5 or so. Each person might get 15 minutes. In our 1-day sessions, each person might get 20 or 30, even 45 minutes, depending on how many people show up and how many groups we break out into. So thinking about how much time people need to really develop and to pick apart whatever issue that they're working on. I'm a big believer in meeting regularly and then having a longer meeting once, twice, or 4 times a year. Another thing you might want to think about as you create your format is, do you want people to come in cold or do you want them to be prepared? One of the things that worked so well at that National Speakers Association Mastermind Group thing was that we gave people room to prepare. So one of the things we did is we separated people out into groups of 5 or 6, and then in advance we asked them to check out each other's website. This was basically for speaker branding. So the mastermind was to help each participant up-level their branding as a speaker. So what we did was, in advance, we asked people to share their URLs, share their videos, whatever materials they wanted people to give feedback on. We shared them on day 1, and then on day 2, we actually held the mastermind. On top of that, one of the cool things we did was that we gave each person this large placemat, like tabloid-sized document, that had exactly all the things we wanted them to look for. Is there a call to action? How are the colors? Does the design look good and consistent? Like, we gave them all these things to basically fill out so that it gave structure to the feedback that they were giving. Instead of just letting people do a free-for-all and give whatever feedback they wanted, we gave them this guideline so that it made the feedback more organized. And it really helped people, because then what they did was they would give them the feedback and then they would hand them the placemat. So each person ended up with these 5 documents that had all the feedback in the document. Now that's a highly organized mastermind, and I don't do that very often. It was very effective, and that is a really effective way of organizing, especially if it's your first time out the gate. Finally, one of the things that you can do to really help your mastermind be effective is to create rules of engagement, how people are going to communicate. So obviously in a mastermind, there are 2 roles. There's the person getting the ideas and the feedback, and the person giving, the people giving ideas and feedback. What we do for our masterminds is we give guidelines for both. So for example, for the people giving feedback, one of the guidelines we give is that they not use the word should, and that they avoid giving prescriptive answers to people. So for example, what that looks like is, instead of saying, hey, I looked at your website and here's what you should do, you should really check out my designer so they can redo all your design, right? That's a very prescriptive feedback that might turn somebody off. First of all, it feels like they're getting rejected, right? That their stuff is no good. And also on top of that, that person is giving them this one solution. So what we ask people to do instead is to use language like, I invite you to consider. I invite you to consider redoing your design so that you can have this better outcome. Like, for example, you could maybe do this, or you could maybe do that, right? And if you're interested, I actually have someone who could be a really good support for you, a designer who knows how to do this really well. Would you be interested in that referral? So notice how I changed the language to make it a lot more open and invite that person to consider these things rather than telling them what they have to do. Now, on the flip side, as someone receiving feedback, what can happen is somebody gives you an idea and you might reject it out of hand and be like, no, I hate that idea. That idea is terrible. I tried that before, doesn't work. The effect of that, even if that's true, is that it shuts down the conversation and it makes the person often who's giving the feedback feel rejected. We never want to do that in a mastermind. We want people to flourish and blossom and be open and express. And if it shuts down the dialogue, that limits the amount of ideas and feedback you're going to get. So instead, we advise people to use language like, thank you for that idea. I really appreciate that you took the time to put that together for me. Here's a question, that I have about that. Or I'll consider that. Thank you. It's that simple. Even if you don't like the idea, you can just say, thanks, I'll consider that. And that keeps the dialogue open and makes that person feel like, hey, my contribution was appreciated. Finally, and this might seem a little obvious, but I've seen it happen over and over again. One of the things I recommend is being really, really strict around timing and having timers and not allowing people to go over their time. It can really derail a mastermind group if one person ends up getting a whole lot of extra time, or if it feels like you're playing favorites. So I'm a big believer in having a timer and having a person, not you, in charge of setting the time and making sure that there's an alarm loud enough that people can hear, so you're not playing the bad guy like, hey, stop, your time is up. Another thing I recommend is to have a half time so that people know when they're halfway through their time, and also a 1 or a 2 minute warning so that they know that they've got to start wrapping it up. I hope this was helpful for you. Honestly, I feel like doing a mastermind group and monetizing it is one of the most fantastic ways of delivering value to clients. I love my mastermind group and I love helping other people create their own. If this is something that interests you and you want to go deeper and explore if or how I might be able to help you make your own mastermind group, then let's set up a time to chat. You can do that for free at superstaractivator.com/go. I look forward to meeting you.